day before. Today, we are going to be going over My Hunt a Killer Curtain Call, Episode 1, Investigation, and I'm very excited. So, we have solved cases with Michelle Gray, a private investigator located in Chicago before. We solved Class of 98 and brought Charlie McDaniel's killer to justice. Then, in the Moon Summit mystery case, we found out just who killed Toby Mendia. Well, this newest case, Curtain Call, may be the most interesting case of all. So, Hunt a Killer is a subscription service, and I will leave information down below in the description, but let's just jump into this case, shall we? So, in Michelle's letter, this time, she gives us a new case. Her friend Julia Adler runs a theater in New York called the Cadence Theater. The last time we were talking about Curtain Call, we had unboxed this, right? And we found out that we need to find the murder weapon in this episode. In Michelle's letter, she just gives us a new case. She also tells us that her friend Julia Adler runs a theater in New York called the Cadence Theater. Okay? Julia has a weird case on her hands that Michelle knows that we can help with. And she gives us information for a shared desktop and wishes us luck. We just looked at Michelle's letter, and next is Julia's letter. So in Julia's letter, we get a bit more, details, okay? So, in Julia's letter, she explains that her family has run the theater, Cadence Theater, since the 1930s. She was looking through the attic of the theater and found a body inside of a trunk. Now, as she was waiting for police to show up, she wondered if it was the body of Viola Vane, who was an actress during the Great Depression. She went missing after a rehearsal, and wild theories about what happened to her spread ever since. As it turns out, she was in the theater all along. Now, the police processed the scene when Julia found the body in the trunk, but once they realized that this wasn't a recent homicide, but it was Viola Vane, the case dropped on the police's list of priorities. So after the theater was released back to Julia, she looked around the attic more and found a cufflink, which is right here. She sent it to us, between the floorboards. That would be right where the trunk had been. And the theater's board of directors is blaming her for the bad publicity from all of this. So Julia is sending us all the information she can gather and all the evidence that she can gather so that we can look this over. So Julia asks us to see if we can identify the murder weapon that was used to kill poor Viola. And Julia also asks us to keep this under wraps for the time being so that she doesn't further upset the board of directors. So let's not go telling any reporters about this just yet, okay, you guys? Next thing we'll look at is the cufflink. So this cufflink, as you can see, it has a pretty cool design on the front. And there is a 1 with a colon on the back. So this is the cufflink that Julia talked about in her letter. And I wonder if it belongs to Viola Vane's killer. The next thing that we'll take a look at is this notebook that we received with this episode. And I think it'll be useful throughout the case. Of course, because you can make notes about the case in the notebook. So there's blank pages in the back. And I've already made some notes. And then in the front, there's just some things that are probably going to be really useful in the case. Like, I've already used this. Let's go ahead and look at the program, and we'll go over it page by page. It is for a play called The Strange Duo, and inside we get information about the woman who was murdered, Viola Vane. We also get information about people who are going to probably end up as suspects. On this first page is Ira Adler, the director. On the next page, we see that Viola Vane was starring in the play, but that Evelyn Kittredge took over her role on May 4th. On the next page, we have Hector Rowland and Viola Vane, who are the two leading roles, and we find out that Hector is engaged to Viola. On the next page, we have Melvin Kahane, Josephina Almont, and Evelyn Kittredge, who, if you remember, took over Viola's leading role. On page 5, we see a synopsis of the play The Strange Duo, which continues on to page 6, until we see a note from George Erickson, the owner of the theater at the time. On the back, we have some ads for some questionable 1930s products. Okay, guys, next we're going to look at Ruth's note. Here it is. So Ruth's note is to Ira Adler, and it is asking Adler to not cast Viola Vane in his next production. It calls Ruth, or this note has Ruth calling Viola immoral, and it's signed by Ruth Erickson. So if you remember, George Erickson is the owner of the theater from the program, and so we can assume that this is his wife. So, will she end up being a suspect? Next, we'll look at the rehearsal notes. So, the rehearsal notes were sort of hard to read, and if you have real trouble, you can use the online tools with this case where there are transcripts, but I could read them. It looks a lot like my grandmother's handwriting. I was raised by my grandmother, and she actually grew up during the Great Depression. So, I thought that was really a great attention to detail, okay? So, on these rehearsal notes, you can see that there is a coded message on them, and it took a bit of time to figure it out, but I used the online tools, specifically the keypad cipher guide. I also used this grid on the back to help me figure out the code to decipher the message. And then the coded message is actually, so this is spoiler alert, if you have not figured it out yet, go ahead and fast forward about 30 seconds. And you can just like watch the rest of the video after that. You know, it won't reveal the message to you. But the message is, George, too hands-on, intense, in the way. Talk to Hector. So I think these are the notes of the stage manager, Joseph Sampson, who is listed inside of the program that we looked at. Next, we're going to go over Hector's letter. And Hector's letter I love because I don't know if you can see that there's like indentations from where it was like typewritten on a typewriter. And I really love those types of, attention to detail with Hunt a Killer. They're very good at that. But anyway, let's go over this letter. So the letter is a letter to the director, Ira. It asks how Ira and Evelyn are holding up. So it looks like Ira, the director, and Evelyn Kittredge, the woman who took over Viola's part in the play, The Strange Duo, has gotten together. This letter was clearly written after Viola had disappeared. And Hector sounds like he thinks Viola is still alive. And he also indicated that things were strained between Viola and Ira, the director, before she disappeared too. And at the bottom is, of course, a coded message. And what I used on the online tools to figure this out is I read about a book cipher. So there's a little hint. And if you want to figure it out on your own, here's a spoiler alert. I'm about to tell what this coded message says. So fast forward a bit if you do not want to know. And you can just like find out for yourself and watch the rest of the video after you fast forward a bit. But the coded message is sending you the money enough to cover your responsibilities. What? So I wonder what that means. Alright folks, the next two things we're going to look at are the forensic report and the attic inventory. There is a lot of information in the forensic report, and I think we may be using a lot of that later on in the case, such as a broken watch with a certain time on it and stuff like that. But I think what's important right now is how Viola Vane died, right? So it says here at the end, the assailant appears to have dealt two powerful blows to the victim utilizing a blunt object. One made contact with the left wrist, which she likely held in front of her in defense. The other made contact with her skull, potentially lodging a small gemstone into her cranial bone while simultaneously lodging shards of bone into her brain. Death, if not instantaneous, likely occurred within minutes of this injury. Shortly after death, the victim's remains were manipulated into the trunk where they remained until the recent discovery. And here is a picture of like a drawing of the body. And as you can see, it looks like she got hit in the noggin pretty hard. So, with that blow to the skull and whatever was used to hit her left a gemstone in her cranial bone, I kept that in mind when I looked at the attic inventory. And so what I noticed was I was looking for an object that could be used to hit someone in the head and that's also missing a gemstone, okay? So I was thinking that has to be the murder weapon. Well, on the back at number 22 is listed, a cane is listed, right? And this was leaning under a coat rack and it was missing a single gemstone. So guys, we found the murder weapon. It was the cane. And there's even more information to come. There's some online evidence that we looked at in this investigation that will give us more information about this cane, okay? So hang tight. So finally, folks, we're going to go over the online evidence. And there are transcripts for the handwritten documents. I think I mentioned that earlier. There's a picture of the body, which I won't show to you. It's pretty gross. And then there are two articles. The old article is this one. And when I printed it off, it just looks this small. But, I mean, I have a copy that I can, like, do close-ups of and stuff like that. So, the old article tells about the end of Hector and Viola's engagement. It also says that Hector proposed just weeks before the strange duo was set to begin. The new article has a lot of information. It tells about Viola's remains being found, and it also explains that Viola was born Victoria Gaina. So Viola Vane is a stage name. She was last seen November 6th, 1934. Vane's mother, Olga Gaina, was a person of interest at the time and also was questioned by police at the time. It also reports in this article that Vane gifted her mother a jewel-encrusted cane, and it's rumored that Olga attacked Viola and her crew during a rehearsal on the night of her disappearance. Interestingly, it also tells of Ira Adler purchasing the theater from George Erikson, Ira going on to marry Evelyn Kittredge, and then the theater had stayed in the Adler family until the present day. So finally, I just wanted to mention that there is a website at cadencetheater.com, and that's Cadence Theater with an R-E at the end instead of an E-R.com, and it's super interesting to look at. It has stuff that's like now playing and stuff like that, so go ahead and check that out. It also has a thing where there's like history and there's like a video and some pictures of actresses from back in the day. So there's the Cadence's original owner, George Erikson, and his wife, Ruth. So I thought that was really cool. It's, like I said, another reason why I love Hunt a Killer is like all of the details to make this feel really immersive and real. So pretty soon I will be unboxing episode 2 of Curtain Call, and I'm really excited about that, you guys. Please make sure you subscribe to make sure that you catch that video, and don't forget to ring the notification bell. If you like this video, be sure to give that thumbs up button a smash, and I will see you very soon with the episode 2 unboxing. Alright guys, see you later. Bye bye.